Hopefully we're live on the interwebs. It looks like we're live on the interwebs. Welcome to Gamcast for Friday evening, another week in the books. We're here tonight to talk about one of the latest smears and hoaxes about the Supreme Court. This one specifically, Brett Kavanaugh. You have to ask yourself why, 6 years later, are we talking about Kavanaugh? Well, it's part of the Supreme Court hoax. It's part of the Supreme Court smear. If these people somehow win the quote-unquote election in November, they're going to try to pack the court, and they're going to need stories like this. This latest one, and I've got the Washington Post here, FBI probe of Kavanaugh constrained by Trump Whitehouse report finds a Democrat senator, so only one senator in the Senate can apparently, if the Democrats are in control, can run an election or an investigation and smear a Supreme Court justice. All this is. But let's go ahead. Let's give Sheldon Whitehouse, he's out of Rhode Island. Let's give him a second, see if he can maybe tell us something that matters here. Again, 6 years later, and it doesn't matter. He can only be impeached. He can't be removed. There's no point in bringing this up, but let's see what he's got.
Here is the nutshell summary of the report we released on the supplemental background investigation into Brett.
And he says we, it's not we, it's him. So he went and did an investigation of what the FBI did, and it's not going to be much here, but let's let him get a chance.
The first finding is that all that talk about the FBI having free reign and able to interview who it wanted was completely false. The entire investigation was completely directed by the White House.
Now, I notice he doesn't give any evidence of this. This is what's called, folks, the law. The executive branch runs these investigations. So he just makes this claim. He doesn't give any evidence of it. But again, this is how bombastic you can be. It's called an investigation, folks. And yeah, it's coordinated with the White House. That would be the president who runs the FBI. But anyway, who cares? You'd think if he had some bombshell information, we'd hear it by now. But nope, so far not.
The FBI only is the mere agent of the White House.
That's what they are, the mere agent of the White House. So is the DOJ, so is everybody else. Again, the Constitution doesn't mean much to him, apparently.
The second point is that when we were told that this was done by the book, that was highly misleading because for supplemental background investigations, it turns out there is no book.
This is what made me laugh out loud. There is no book. Like, it's like the scene from A Few Good Men when he says, hey, have you been in the Marines for 6 years and you've never had a meal? Because show me in this book where you go get a meal. It's like, oh, well, I just follow people at chow time. Like, come on. There's no book. This is just so absurd. Let's give him one more shot. This is going to wrap it up.
We also found out that the directions were not to pursue corroborating evidence, only direct evidence.
Which is common. Direct evidence is evidence that directly leads to a fact. Corroborating or so-called circumstantial evidence is evidence that tends to corroborate direct evidence, right? So if somebody calls in on a quote-unquote tip line and says, hey, I heard from so-and-so who heard from so-and-so who heard from so-and-so that Kavanaugh once was at a party, I'm not going to pursue that. So he was at a party. But he'd say, oh, that corroborates the fact that it might have been this party. It also might be some other party. This is just nuts. It's nuts. And folks, notice he gives you nothing. He's now had a minute, and he hasn't given you one specific piece of evidence. And this story broke a couple of days ago. It's now 48 hours old, and you don't have a single bit of this evidence. All you have is, the only thing he's going to say in a second, I've got to wrap it up so we can't get to it, but he's going to say that they ignored, I think the number was 4,200. They ignored a lot of the quote-unquote tips. Come on, folks. 4,200 tips. Let me leave you a couple things, though, before we move on. One, this was boosted by none other than Eric Holder, who knows everything I know about the law. Okay? He's a charlatan, but he's been to law school. He knows the things I just told you. He knows they're true. Yet he's boosting this garbage. Okay? The confirmation investigation was, as expected, a sham. Wasn't a sham. Number two, okay, this free reign Kavanaugh probe, it was a sham, the report finds. Here's another person on the left, a fascist, boosting this note from the New Yorker, this garbage report that I just debunked. But here's the biggest debunk of all, other than the ones I gave you. Kavanaugh was nominated to be a circuit justice, Court of Appeals, right, before he got nominated to the Supreme Court in 2018. So he did in 2006. Just like Clarence Thomas, he had gone through 2 investigations. Nothing had been found. If it had been, he never would have gotten to that Senate thing. This is the same playbook they did with Thomas. They bring in somebody to lie, then they lie, and then they say, oh, let's have a brand new investigation, and then they have all the crazies come in there, and then they go, oh, you didn't pursue every lead, so it's not legit. It's a complete hoax. There's no reason we're talking about this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and if you do, you'll see me on the next one.